Hey guys, it's Tiny Tom Logan back with another video for you. Today we're going to be taking a look at the Corsair HX850. Now one thing I do want to say from the very start is this is again a kind of subsidiary view where James has done the main review on Overclock 3D, where he's done all the in-depth testing, where we can literally bring a power supply to its knees should we want, or flames as we have done in the past. So James has done all the technical testing on this, and I'm just doing a subsidiary view on the aesthetics, and then also bringing it into the conclusion that we're doing the video, part of the points he's brought out in the main review. So you get the kind of best of both worlds here. So what we're going to do now is move on and have a look at what's inside the box and all the aesthetics, and then we'll come back at the end for a talk about the testing, my overall thoughts on the unit, and then a kind of final conclusion. Right then peeps, you don't need to be a rocket scientist to see that we are doing this in the light tent. It's just because I was taking some pictures of the power supply previously, so I thought I would do this section of the video in here as well. So, HX850. First thing that we see down the side, 7-year warranty. That's really worth kind of noting with power supplies nowadays, so that if you do get any problems, you know you've got a 7-year backup on it. I would have thought most of you would have replaced it within 7 years, but you do get the odd person that doesn't. But anyway, so 80 plus gold. That's actually moved up because the HX850 previously was a silver rated power supply, but they're moving the whole range kind of up a notch now to keep with the higher levels of efficiency and stuff that are going to be moving along. Then we've got an EUP badge, and it says it's C6 ready. Now, let's have a look. Around the back, it's auto switching circuitry, accepts alternating current from 100 volts to 240 volts, so that's good for multi-regional. It's saying about the EPS 12 volt, 2.91 standards, la 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 la. Dimensions 150 by 86 by 180. So that means it's 180 long and then 150 wide. 150 wide is normal, but 180 long means that it's a little bit longer than a standard ATX power supply. Round the back, has got some gubbins, kind of chucking this around for you. Round the back, it has got some gubbins about the connectors and stuff like that. But we will get all into this. Now, it's got easy to configure single rail architecture and semi-modular cable set. It's got a single 70 amp 12 volt rail, so that's pretty bloody good. And if we look down here, we can see it says down here, maximum load 70 amps, 840 watts on the 12 volt rail. 150 watts across the 3.3 and the 5 volt. Minus 12 volt is the 9.6 watts, and then the plus 5V SB is 15 watts. Total power of 850 watts. Certified 80 plus gold efficiency, and then it's got a low noise thermally controlled fan. Up to 90% energy efficient, produces less heat, less noise, and then also says more about the Corsair 7-year warranty. But what we need to do is crack the old curl open. Now, trying to do something this big in my light tent was never the best idea, really, because the bottom's moving around all over the place. Now, we get into the box. So we'll open this up. Can you still see? Yes, I do believe you can. I'll stick it that way. Come on, Tom. There we go. A bit more that way. How about that? Yeah, right. So, manual, and then your warranty guide. Pretty simple stuff, so we'll move these out the way. This one has come with an American plug, but if you buy it in the UK, you will get a UK plug. This is just where my review samples obviously get sent direct from Corsair, which means it comes from the US. But anything that you do buy in your specific regions, you'll get the proper regional plug for it, so don't worry about that. Cables we'll talk about in a little bit, but we open this bit of polystyrene, we get our first glimpse of the main bulk of cables and the power supply in its bag. Now, we've got a few zip ties, Corsair, powered by Corsair badge. It's either a hard plastic or a metal. It's not like a flimsy one. I say a hard plastic, but with the, let's get it. No, I can't be bothered. And then some screws as well, so you can fit it to your case. It comes in a nice cloth bag. You can see the like the dust marks from there, or the like some marks from the fan grill that's underneath. It's like a velvety bag. Now, as you can probably tell, I'm stood up, kind of hugging my tripod, but keeping the power supply in the light tent. This is our first look at the power supply itself. So first things first, kind of like a stripped grill across the front, rather than kind of like a plain one. The kind of the strippy bits do remind me of the old Be Quiet power supplies, but the rings are what kind of really differentiate that design. Unlike the GS800 we saw previously, is just kind of a square kind of normal layout, we'll say. Obviously got power switch on the back, and then when you plug it in, nothing else really on the back there to worry about. Obviously the labels are the right way up depending on which way you're going to mount it in your case, so that's good. Around the back we can see that we've got 4 blue connections, which we'll talk about with the cables in a minute, and then that's for your PCI Express, which is 6+2 pin, so 8 if you want it, and your 4+4 CPU should you want to use it. And I say and your 4+4 because it has got the standard 8 pin there, but you can split that as well. Anyway, and then you've got your peripherals here, so your Molex and your SATAs. Now, on the actual bundle of cables itself, you have got 2 PCI Express cables. These are 6+2. Your 8-pin CPU power, like I said before, and then your 24-pin. Now, the braiding. I'm going to basically, I think what's going to be easiest to do is if I zoom the camera in, and we'll do it that way. So you can see the colours through the braid. The braid is it's an average braid. It's black, but it's the cables beneath that really kind of show it through. Corsair have started to do this thing where they've been using the specific coloured cables to go with the braid. So if you've got black braid, black cables underneath, blue braid, you know what I mean, with their individual cables. And they've also started doing it with some of the other power supply cables as well. It's normally the fully modular ones, like on the AX series, that have got all black cables throughout. I think it's something to do with the fact that they're fully modular, so it's the ones outside the power supply. Because the ones, when you look inside the power supply, they are still coloured so they can get wired up properly. So I think that's what it might be, but it would be nice if they could work out some way with these semi-modulars just to, so the cables were all black, just so that when you have to braid them like this, it doesn't show through. And I can kind of show you this because with the modular cables, as you can see, the cables underneath are black. It's the exact same braid, but look, you can't see it. You'd think it makes the braid appear to be much better, but you can, if you look carefully, see the cables underneath. But where it's black, it's kind of much more stealthy looking. It does make all the difference. So the standard cables on it are average, we'll say. Nothing to write home about, nothing that great about them, but nothing spectacularly bad about them either. When you go onto the modular cables, with those black cables, they do just look much more, they've got a much more quality feel to them. So that's kind of my thoughts about the aesthetics of the cabling. I really do like the blue on the power supply, by the way. So your other cables, we have a big bag full of other cables. So what do we have? We have, this is PCI Express 6+2, PCI Express 6+2, PCI Express 6+2. No, actually, yes, it is 6+2. And then we've got the CPU 4+4. Then we've got another 6 plus 2 PCI Express. So in total we've got 2 PCI Expresses on the main power unit, and then we've got a further 4 that we can use outside. So if you've got dual port graphics cards, that's triple SLI you technically could run, or triple crossfire, whatever, with these. You just need to go careful, because if you need this as well, you won't have enough fittings. But we're covering that. Then we've also got the normal black stripped cables that we're all kind of used to seeing on Corsair power supplies, with a selection of SATA and Molex connections with the lovely individually done black cables. I actually wish they'd do the whole power supply like this, because I really like these cables. And it also comes with a Molex to floppy. I know a lot of people say, well, I'm never going to use a floppy drive anymore. Well, a lot of power connections nowadays still use the floppy connection. My Zonar D2X, it's got a floppy connection on it. So that's your cables, that's your aesthetics. So it's obviously it's kind of their their lower middle of the range power supplies, kind of like mainstream kind of level, semi-modular, because we've obviously got some attached and some that we have loose. Good kind of understated unit, I think. Only slight pick for me personally would be the coloured cables used in the braid, because when you it's all come undone now. If we have a look at that, you can see the coloured cable on the end of the 24 pin there, and you can see it through the braid as well. So it would either need to go black with the cables to make that better, or use a better quality braid and try and get the braid further up on that 24 pin to try and give it a bit more of a better feel. If it was my choice out of those two, I'd much prefer the black cable option. Something that I can say about these is you can buy, to replace the cables that come in the kit, without them falling over, the cables that come in the kit, you can buy the individually braided kits from the likes of Special Tech, and it's a completely replacement kit that goes with all of these, and they do them in white, they do them in blue, they do them in red, and they do them in black, and you just get a full replacement load of these cables to be able to swap the cables on your power supply, and it's all fully authorised with Corsair, and they're about 50 quid. I've got some for the AX series power supplies here. I've been using them for quite a while. But that's the aesthetics. Now what we need to do is move on to testing results and the conclusion. Right then, so the HX850 watt. Now I'm going to grab the main one actually, because the thing is with this unit, and the thing that I found really personally, is there's really not a lot to distinguish it from the old unit, both with performance and with aesthetics. I mean, the most visual thing that they've changed is the fan grille and the area around the fan grille at the top here. And I really do quite like the look of this at the top. I think it's a much better looking unit. Something else that I didn't point out previously is the Corsair logo faces sideways. So if, like me, you have your fan pointing up, the Corsair logo will be better for you rather than it facing forwards. And the only other real thing is that a very subtle change with the sticker. The blue has changed colour slightly. We've got a different Corsair logo now, just because there's slightly different branding there, and it's a much more subtle, clean, modern look. Now, yeah, I am a bit bunged up. Other than that, with the looks of the unit, nothing has really changed. The cables all look the same, the modular cables all look the same. There's a slightly different layout with the modular bits on the side, but there's still the same amount of connections there. Now, when it comes to the testing, it was very much the same as well, because the old 850 watt, we got up to a casual 1100 watts load. No, actually, sorry, I do apologise, it was 1200 watts load. This one was nearly 1100 watts. So there was a little bit of a difference there with the max rating. Ripple was all very, very good with the new one, as it was with the old one. If anything, the newer one had a slightly higher ripple with the plus 12 volt rail on 850 watts, so maximum load for the PSU, or 100% for the PSU, and then also a max voltage as well, which is the maximum that we possibly got through it. And it was like between 8 and 12 millivolts difference between the new and the old one, where the newer one slightly fell over. Now, obviously we've got the efficiency rating as gold this time, whereas before it was only silver. Now, a lot of the times with the efficiency, to get the efficiency up that little bit more, sometimes the ripple does suffer a little bit, because obviously suppressing that voltage ripple is then taking out some of the taken away from the efficiency. So it's one of those things where it's a bit of a balancing act. But what Corsair have essentially done with a power supply that was amazing when it first came out, and we said originally that it was the best in its class for anything up to 1,000 watts, and pretty much the only reason why we said up to 1,000 watts was because that's when the HX1000 come in, and that was obviously epic in itself as well. But they've essentially, it's not a massive kind of revamp of a power supply. All they've really done is added a little bit of spit and polish in. Now, the newer features with the fan and the gold rating and the 7-year warranty aren't going to bring any extra kind of costs in. It's going to be falling in. I've looked around online. Corsair originally said to me it's going to be around the $139.99 mark, and I was thinking, But when I looked online earlier on, I was found in stores that were going to be selling it for £120. Once you had shipping on it, was like 130. So for 120 quid, it's actually a really good bargain, because one of the things, the only real thing I've got as a bugbear with this unit are the cables, and the fact that they are coloured cables. Now, but I need to kind of explain this to you. So this is where we're going to get into a bit of TTL kind of engineering lesson. When you get the cables like this, basically they are attached to the PCB inside the power supply. And all of the cables, including all of these connections here, are connected to the PCB with coloured cables. And it makes the people that are assembling them, it makes their life a lot easier, because they have colour maps where they know which cable has to go where, and they basically just go in and solder them into the right places. Now, the modular cables, that's not a problem, because you can just make sure that the right connector is fitted to the right connector on the other end. And you can run black ones, which is why those cables are black. But when you're trying to do that with the fixed cables, that would then mean soldering fixed black cables in, and there'd be no way really, once they were in a bunch, for the people that were assembling them, or whatever you want to call them at the factory, to know which cable was which. Now, you could put tiny coloured ends on the cables, but that would then mean you wouldn't be able to use a long roll of black cable. You'd have loads of kind of little bits made up, which would add cost. You could get around it by having black cables with like a coloured line on it, but then you're still going to be able to see the colour through the braid. So this is one of the reasons why changing these cables, although it would be amazing to get rid of those coloured cables at the end and stop it from dating them, it does make the actual kind of behind the scenes work and actually assembling the PSU in the first place quite difficult, which is why it's not really been done yet. It is a shame, because I think if they did manage to work out a cost effective way of doing it, it would make such a difference to these cables. Because when you do, as you've seen with the smaller modular cables, when you do change the cables to black, the braid and the cables do kind of mesh together quite well. It's almost like a stealth bomber effect. A radar can't see a stealth bomber. When you put black cables underneath this black braid, it's very difficult for your eyes to distinguish the cables beneath to the actual braid itself, especially at a quick look or from a distance. You just can't tell. It just looks like really thick quality black braid. So although I'm trying to explain, I understand why they've got coloured cables. I'm just saying it would be a really, really nice touch if these coloured cables got changed. And it's the coloured cables would be the only reason why I would say to you to upgrade to the AX. Now, what I want to do is, I haven't said it yet, but we've given it a gold award, and I'll kind of go into why. But the only reason why you would want to upgrade from the HX to the AX, personally, would be aesthetics. The fact that you've got 100% modular cables, so you can only so that you only have to use. So I'm just turning it on to silent, so that you only have to use the cables that you want, but also because of the modular connections that I said about, you then have all black cables coming out from it as well. But also with the AX series power supplies, you've also got the option of buying the individually braided cable kits, so you can then have all of your power supply cables in blue, red, white or black, and they're all individually braided as well, and they have the right corresponding cables beneath, so you have a thin braid on the top with a coloured cable beneath, and it does look really effective. You can get braided cable kits for the HX series power supplies, which they're available from the same shops as the normal ones. Apart from, obviously, you've got these cables here which are fixed, and it's only really the SATA cables, the Molex cables, and your PCI Express cables that will get changed. Now, I think that the 24-pin cable and your PSU 8-pin, your CPU 8-pin is just as important. So if it was me, I'd end up then wanting to spend more money to get extensions for those, just so that you had, a similar sort of coloured cable, and then it's kind of a false economy then. So if you're looking to buy one of these and then buy the upgrade kit, I wouldn't bother. I would personally buy the AX. These for me now would be for someone, and there are many of you out there that are just not that fussed about, braided cables and maybe even the aesthetics of your rig altogether. You're just looking for performance, you're not going to have a window on your case, you're just not that bothered about it. This would be the one for you. The AX really would be for the people that want that little bit more. Now, because I've taken my notes here, but something else that I need to talk to you about is the fact that Corsair say that the semi-modular fan on this spins up around 170 watts. Now, there was no mention of it being temperature based at all. So basically, when we were testing, or when James was testing the first time, he tested out, because we've got a hot box as well. He tested outside just to do some basic kind of normal ambient temperature tests before we warmed it up. And it was running for 15-20 minutes, and it wasn't until Jim then pushed the voltage pull up to 850 watts that the fan span up for the very first time. So it'd run 100% passive up until our load tester was put an 850 watts load on the 12 volt rail, or across all the rails altogether, I should say, which was kind of, it was nuts really that it was, able to do that. We then stuck it in the hot box, ran it at 50 degrees, did all of our tests again on it, and then took it back out. Once it had obviously warmed up, because it'd been in the hot box for an hour, once it had warmed up, R1 wasn't kicking in until then we were putting 500 watts of load on it. So what we would probably say is that this is, we would more than likely say that it's probably a temperature based fan rather than a wattage based fan. So as everything starts to warm up, that'll be when it starts to kick in, and it doesn't just kick in and go nuts. There's a nice ramp to it as well. So yes, what we would say is, obviously before 850 watts kicked in, once it had warmed up, it was 500 watts. So that would lead us to believe that it was more of a temperature based thing rather than, just solely locked at a wattage pull kind of thing. And obviously you'd need to be able to work out the wattage that was going through it and monitor that anyway before it would kick in. So again, it says 170 watt, which is 20%, but we would say that it's much closely linked to temperature. Obviously in the UK, when it's nice and chilly and you've got like an 18 or 20 degrees room, your rig's going to be doing much more before that fan kicks in. One of the things I personally tested on it as well is I had a 3930K hanging off of this, with a 7950. They weren't overclocked, but basically it played Crisis 2 for 45 minutes and the fan stayed passive, hadn't spun up at all. It essentially, I think what had happened in the end is the graphics card had warmed the room up a fair bit and it had got relatively warm, and that was when that then span up. So that just goes to show you how good that the internals are on this and how good the semi-fanular side of this is. But even when that fan's running, you can't hear it. So it's a very good unit for those of you that have got a performance rig but are still, you know, insanely crazy with your, you know, you're really searching for silence. So other than talking about the fact that the caps inside are all designed to be run, you know, up to 105C, you know, they're crazy overly rated for what they are, and the fact that it's now got a 7-year warranty, it's kind of all adding in these aspects of why we did give it that gold award, because it still performs up there with the best of the power supplies on the market at the moment. It's not so much a leap forward as the original HX was, because when the original HXs come out, Corsair took such a monumental step forward, you know, away from the competition. It was unreal. The market is now closed down quite a bit more, so it's not, you know, quite such an industry leader as it was with this unit. But then again, this isn't the top of the range unit anymore. This is kind of their kind of mid to kind of mid-high range. It's not their class leader at all. So it's still a very, very good unit, and for 120 quid, the performance it delivers with the features that it comes with and the warranty are all brilliant. But the only thing I would say is I would say this is probably a unit for someone that's not as kind of conscious about the aesthetics of their rig, or not as anal about it as I possibly would be. If the cables are likely to drive you nuts, those coloured cables, then that will be the time where you don't have any other choice of really going up to the AX series power supplies, which are fully modular, and that's going to cost you another 35 to 40 quid. But obviously the benefits of that are those fully modular cables and the fact that you can then upgrade the cable kits and everything like that as well. The AX series power supplies are actually a little bit smaller as well, still come with the gold rating, and yeah, that's really about it. So that's kind of where we are with it. It's still very, for the price, it's brilliant. Hopefully I've explained enough that you've been able to understand. Please don't forget to subscribe, comment and all that kind of stuff. Also, go and have a look at the main review in the link that I will put underneath, so you can go and see all the oscilloscope graphs, all the voltage graphs, everything that we've done as we would do as a part of normal in-depth power supply testing. But for now, at least, this is Tiny Tom Logan with the Corsair HX850 watt V2 power supply, which has just run the OC3D Gold Award, with another video for you. Crisis, the endings are getting longer than the bloody reviews, aren't they? Anyway, it's another video for you. Out.